All right, welcome back. Hope you managed to get a quick cup of coffee in between. I hope you did a little bit of bum whacking as you did it. I hope your prefrontal cortex are ready for the next session. And I've really done a lot of thinking over this time. One of the joys of coming to the end of after 27 years of running a school and deciding to start a education consultancy company and really focusing now on online training for schools, teachers. How do we connect in an environment that is so different? How do we do it online? How do we do it in person? How do we marry the two in a hybrid model? How do we, as Michelle was saying, how do we move forward? And we are living in exciting, exciting times. And I want to share with you this afternoon the 7 R's of restoring connection. Now, if you are a left brain dominant person, and neuroscientists hate it when we say, are you left brain or right brain? Because they always say to us teachers, are you dealing with half brain people or are you dealing with whole brain people? And we are whole brain, but we tend to have a little bit of a tendency to move to one or the other as our sort of default mode. So if you're left brain, you're probably thinking to yourself, there's too much information. How do I get it together? And I want you to know that I'm very much like that. So I spend my time when I'm on these Zoom calls or on these webinars, taking photographs of every screen so I can put it together. But I'm going to make that far easier for you to say that I'm going to be sending all the delegates a copy of the presentations in a note form so that they can actually go through it in their own time. So rather engage with me as we go through this rather than trying to capture, because there are a hang of a lot of R's involved in restoring connection in a COVID world. So I'm going to pick up the 7 R's very quickly. We only have 22 minutes left, and I want to spend literally a few minutes on each of the R's that is so essential. And the first R that I want us to capture this afternoon is that we have to revise the remedy that we're using for education. Gone are the days that we can continue doing it the way we were doing it. Things cannot be the same after 2020. And that goes down from education policy into the bureaucracy that is causing such pain amongst teachers in our country and indeed all over the world, into our classrooms where we are so curriculum driven of giving data and not allowing the brain to think about it, to the point where we're not even concerned where the child feels safe and whether they have a sense of belonging and worth so that we can get into their thinking brain. We have to revise the remedy, and the remedy, let's go a little bit further, the remedial action we take when children don't get it right the first time. That's not a learning problem. The reality is that we all take different lengths of time to master things. Some of us are walking at 9 months. Others of us walk at 18 months. Some of us can reverse park at 18 years old, and others of us, like my dear wife, will drive around until a parking bay becomes available so she can go in frontways. We all develop at different time. I'm hoping that she'll be able to reverse park before she moves on to glory. But we do have to revise the remedy, the way we do things. The second R is we have to restore relationship. And today, and Michelle said it so beautifully in her introduction, we've got to talk about how we're going to deliver and how we're going to keep that relationship right. Because remember, that survival brain wants to feel safe and he wants to feel loved, a sense of belonging. relationships are all important. It's so hard for me to engage with you today because I don't feel that I'm in relationship with you. I hope we're going to get into a closer relationship, because then you can bounce your ideas. And the reason we've put together such a dynamic team here at Keller House is that we want to be the support to the schools that have never had that support, especially in professional development. And we don't want to sit at a Saturday conference from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. We want to be able to do it online when we feel like it. We want to be in relationship with someone who cares. And we've got to restore that relationship. We've got to restore that relationship with our children. They've got to be seen. They've got to be secure. They've got to have that sense that I have value. When a child goes to school and knows that they are liked, they just need one charismatic teacher. Imagine if we could employ a whole staff of charismatic teachers whose primary task is to love children. I will guarantee you, after 27 years at the chalk face as a principal and 37 years in education, that if you smile at children and you like them and you make them your client, they will learn to think. We've got to restore that relationship. So revise the remedy, restore the relationship. And this is one of my favorite concepts. Remember the rough draft. This brain is incredible. It is making connections all over this brain. But it has learned through the years of evolution that you cannot get it all at once. And then come along crazy people. Crazy people are the people who write curricula. They fill a curriculum with so much knowledge, data, that you pump it into their brain so that they can regurgitate it, vomit it out for an exam and forget it. So what the brain has learned to do is to just get a rough draft and then fill in with their previous knowledge, their biases, what they heard a friend say, what their parents think, and they will present to you a rough draft. Stop assessing children on their rough draft as you make that connection. Because the moment they are fearful, the moment they do not feel worthy, you're not going to get them thinking. They're going to flip their lid, out's going to run ruru, and the survival brain, this marufat, is going to behave badly. Redo it over and over in different contexts, not in the same context. Don't get them up saying their tables every day. Change it around, play games with tables. Get them to work through those algebraic equations in different ways so that they discover the joy and the love for maths that we so badly want them to do. Remember the remedy. Revise the remedy. Restore the relationship. Remember the rough draft. I want you to raise the level of resiliency in our children. There's a story that I heard that really made me understand the concept of resilience in a time of great trial. And as Michelle said again in her introduction, the last time we went through this was in a world war. And I was only a twinkle in my father's eyes in those days. But the World War, very few people predicted a world war taking place in 1939. In 1938, the census in the United Kingdom, in Britain, showed that 80% of children left school by the age of 14, and only 1 in 100 went to university. In 1941, after war was declared in 1941, Richard Austin Butler was appointed as the president of the Board of Education, a Conservative MP given the role to be basically, as we would call today, the Minister of Education. In the midst of London being bombed, in a time when his own home was literally bombed to the ground and he had to move in with into another cabinet minister's house, Richard Butler gathered all the great education dreamers and thinkers together, and they sat down and redesigned the education program for the future. And in 1944, the Education Act was released, so that when peace was declared in 1945, Britain had a new education system ready for the new world. We have to tell stories to our children during this time to build resilience. Throughout their lives, they are going to have events. It's what we do in that event that is so important. It's whether we think about innovation. No one feels like being innovative now. Are we trying to keep people apart? I watched a video yesterday at this conference of this school that had helicopter bands going all the way around their heads so that children could keep their social distancing. I thought, oh my word, no. We've got to raise resilience. We've got to rebuild self-regulation. I don't know about you, but I've been retired this year, well, for a month before I started Keller Education. Very different to running a school, very different. But my wife's in teaching, and I have seen the trauma that teachers have gone through this year, personally. And I want you to know that if we are going to reconnect, if we are going to restore that connection, we've got to be able to regulate our own emotions. And that is regulating Ruru. One of the most powerful ways of regulation is getting our breath work right. Our offices are here in Noordhoek in Cape Town, and so I want to just take you on a little journey down to the beach, which is just down the road here. And I want you to breathe with me. I want you to just practice the power of breathing. And as we go down onto that beach, I want you to just watch those waves rolling in onto Long Beach, and you can see Kommetjie in the distance. And as you are watching that, I want you to breathe in. Put your hand on your belly. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and sigh out. 2, 3, 4. This time when we sigh out, I want you to use the serotonin that's going to be produced in your gut. And I want you to make the words, ah. All right, breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Sigh out, 2, 3, 4. Ah. Now this time, I want you to breathe in. I want you to sigh out with your aha, and then I want you to smile. Because when you smile, you send a message to your brain that you're happy. The brain can be easily overridden. It's very easy. You smile, your brain will think you're happy. And you only have to hold it for 12 minutes. We won't be doing 12 minutes now, but when you're walking on that beach, when you're relaxing, so hold your tongue, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, sigh out, 2, 3, 4. And I want to encourage you to self-regulate with your children regularly. So let's just revise quickly. We've revised the remedy. We've got to do things differently. School cannot be the same. We've got to look at this pressure of exams and testing and assessments. We've got to look at this, the unbelievable pressure teachers have been to sort of wrap up some sort of assessment, to get a report out in the time when all they're trying to do is manage children back into some sort of semblance of order and routine. We've got to revise the remedy. We've got to restore the relationship. We've got to remember that their brains are setting rough drafts. We've got to raise the resilience level and get that innovation going and realize that despite bombs falling or diseases and viruses or whatever it is coming our way, and the fact that we cannot get a vaccine before an election, and that there's just so much happening, everyone is so traumatized, and we're watching too much world news, well, I am anyway, that we are so anxious that we are not dealing with this gut that we have that holds all these neurons that are producing the calming drug serotonin. What happens is that we start reacting instead of responding. And one thing that this crocodile does, where are you? Here you are. One thing this crocodile does is it is an expert in a reaction, whereas the cortex is an expert in response. Slow and steady, fast and dirty. We need to reduce the reaction by making Marufat feel safe, getting Ruru to recognize the emotion. I'm actually anxious about going to school today and having to connect with those children. Acknowledge it. I'm anxious. Let me self-regulate. Let me breathe through this. Let me go for a walk on the beach. Let me put some music on. Let me just get myself in a good place. Friends, teaching and parenting is theater. We've got to act it. And we've got to work hard as an actor to get us ready for that time on the stage. We have to reduce the reaction. The last R that I want to share with you this afternoon is I want you to rejuvenate your relaxation program. As a teacher with 37 years experience, it has taken me this year to discover how stressed I was as an educator. The job is all demanding and all consuming, and it is going to make you ill unless you make the decision not to. I wish I had done that. I want to encourage every delegate watching this today to make a commitment to start relaxing. I hated this when I was a principal, saying these words, but it's so true. Teaching is just a job. It's a fundamental job. It's a frontline job, but it's still a job. And we've got to learn to relax and spend time not being on site. You don't get a medal on your gravestone one day that says, "Here lieth Gavin. He was at school at 6 o'clock until midnight for 37 years. No, you get a statement on the tombstone that says fool. We want to be good teachers. We want to make children feel safe and secure. We want them to feel a sense of worth. We want them to zip their crocodile and use their prefrontal cortex. And then we need to design our lifestyle so that we can then leave and go and relax. Look after yourself. Won't you do something with me at this moment? Won't you put your hand on your heart? I know it's corny, but remember we said, teachers, it's theater. Theatrical honesty. Put your hand on your heart and say, today, on this webinar, I am going to make a commitment to relax and love my job, because no job impacts the life of children or anyone as much as teaching. You need to take time out. You need to sleep well. You need to watch your diet. You need to exercise. You need to learn to breathe in order to rejuvenate your relaxation program. And so I leave you this very important question. Are you creating an enriched environment? In our EduMag on our website this month, in the October edition, I write an article on how to make an environment an enriched environment. And I encourage you to read that. It's on our website. Do go to it and really work hard at rethinking your teaching environment to keep marufat kal zipped, to make sure that the prefrontal cortex is in place. And so the summary, I want you to revise the remedy. I want you to restore the relationships. I want you to remember the rough draft that the brain makes and that it's going to present work that it hasn't fully understood. And we don't want the response from the teachers that aren't on this webinar saying, did you not listen to me yesterday? No, because if this child has any neuroscience, excuse me, ma'am, but I'm presenting a rough draft. You need to raise resilience. You need to rebuild that self-regulation in your children and yourself. You need to reduce the reactions that I can't handle this. And we send you to and direct it to our principals often. And I was one for 27 years, and I know what it's like. I know we can be, I won't use the word on a webinar, but we can be difficult. All right. And you just, if he sends me another memo, I am going, that's a reaction. Respond, breathe. I want to get up into my top brain. I want to respond. I love my job, get paid peanuts, but I love it. Now let me respond appropriate, reduce the reactions. And lastly, rejuvenate your relaxation program. I've put it all together in a book so we teachers can understand it. It's written by a creative. It's in full color. It's simple to understand. It balances the neuroscience with the practice and gives teachers a little bit of an exciting look at how the human brain really loves being at school. Thank you for joining me on this breakout session.